that sounds amazing.
Okay, hello. This is Sandra Wallace from Living in My Shadow podcast. And today I have the honor and privilege of speaking with Heather Murphy. Just a little bit of background on Heather. Heather is a certified embodiment coach and trauma-informed breathwork facilitator. She's also the host of her own podcast, For the Love of Self podcast. She's a mother, an artist, and also a student of psychology. After overcoming her own struggles with anxiety and depression, she now teaches women emotional and energetic mastery so they too can live a life they love. Her mission is to help people love themselves deeply and live a life of authentic self-expression. So welcome, Heather, all the way from California.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Sandra. It's such an honor.
Thank you for being here. I wanted to start by just asking you a few questions. First and foremost, your bio indicated that you had your own personal journey living with anxiety and depression. So I wondered if we could start by just talking a little bit more about that so the audience gets to know who Heather is and where you came from.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I am an open book when it comes to this topic, and I wasn't like that before. I think for a lot of people who struggle with one illness or another, feel maybe feelings of shame around that. So I just really want to let the listener know that if you're going through that, I was there too. I started struggling with anxiety and depression when I was 9 and didn't know what to do with that. And just thought that my family just thought I was a really emotional kid. And so there was a lot of shame, I think, around just being, I'm putting air quotes, just an emotional kid. And I think that, a lot of us are empathetic and can sometimes be so sensitive to all the things happening around us, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what can happen, for me for a long time, is that I was really in a trauma of people pleasing for years because I was like trying to not seem so depressed. So I was like, hiding. I was either hiding or I was faking that I was happy and everything was great. Same thing with anxiety. There was so many situations that I just couldn't deal with because I just didn't feel comfortable in crowded places or being around new people or whatever. I joked that like my happy place is a cave or something, like I had
Yeah.
this darkness. And so it created a lot of, over the years, just starting at 9, it, went through high school. And then in my 20s, that was a disaster. I struggled with addiction. I was homeless at one point. My life was just I really to swear on this or no? It was a, it was a crapshoot. It was a bad situation. So, um, I really started to, slowly work on myself as I got closer to my 30s and I got pregnant. And my daughter was really my inspiration for getting serious about, just like, I feel like I started my spiritual journey and yeah, but it was really years before that I discovered The Secret when I was in my mid-20s, and manifestation kind of really opened the door for me about like being the creator of my life.
Mhm.
And I think that opened the door to like personal development. And I loved reading like any personal development book. And I was doing all this like mind work around stuff, and it really did help. I think people who struggle with depression, just you get into such a habit of having a negative mindset about a lot of stuff because it's just a way of being when you struggle with depression. And there's no shame about that. It can be just a survival reaction. But yeah, when I got to a place, like I said, when especially when I got pregnant, where I was like, oh, like there's still so much quote unquote fixing. I need to be fixed still. I'm not there, whatever there is. And so it wasn't long after that I really started my embodiment journey. And that's when I realized we really have to include the body in our healing process, but also our creation process of our lives. Our body is talking to us all the time and we're not listening. We haven't been given the space to listen a lot of the times. we've been controlled by parents or caretakers or society to not listen to that. So when we're struggling with anxiety and depression, like I was for years, I really noticed a big change going from all the personal development mindset stuff, starting to include my body. That's where the shift really began.
Interesting. And when you said your mindset, even with the mindset, when we're going through depression, a lot of the negative talk that we tell ourselves, and the brain is so programmed to go what it's familiar with. So if we're always having that negative talk, that negative conversation, then that's where the brain takes us, and that's where we get stuck. So I'm glad that you brought
Mhm.
that up. So furthermore to that, because there'll be certain people watching that may not know what an embodiment coach is, and a trauma-informed breath work person that
Yeah.
helps others learn those skills. So can you talk a little bit about those two?
Yeah, definitely. So, embodiment is really just a term used to talk about integrating knowledge. So, like I mentioned earlier, I was really obsessed with personal development. And let's say you're reading, and you're like, I know that I should think this way, and I know I should do these things,
Mhm.
but I'm not doing them. And that's because they're not known in your body. So, it's knowledge that's in the body, and it's a big part of your identity too, right? So like, let's say your identity, right, is that you live in Canada. And so like that can't be taken away from you because that's embodied. It's an embodied knowledge. Like that's where maybe you grew up or whatever that is. So that's just like a simple example.
Mhm.
But like, let's say we want to make a shift. Like, I want to have a new belief system about money or my relationship. For example, like I used to have a lot of turmoil in my romantic relationships because of all the mental health struggles that I was dealing with. It can be hard for people to hold space for people that struggle with mental illness. And so my husband and I struggled for some time for sure. And it got to the point where I realized like I'm not letting him love me. And so I had to get to that place where I was like, okay, I want to know what it like that it's safe to be loved. There's like it's okay to let someone love me.
Yeah.
And so it's one thing to know that in your brain, but I had to teach my body that it was safe to be loved, if that makes sense.
Very much.
And so yeah, and so like with breath work, that is one way that we can start shifting and moving stagnant. We hold trauma in our bodies, and so through these breathwork is a type of somatic experiencing, and soma stands for the body. The word soma is the body, and so it's a type of somatic experiencing where you can integrate new belief systems. You can move stagnant energy and emotions out of your body, and it's all like my training is trauma informed because of the fact that a lot of people carry wounding in their bodies, and you can't just start having someone breathe this intense breathing pattern without acknowledging that they need to access some sense of safety in their body before they go to a space that they're not ready to go to. People have stuff that they are not ready to look at, and your body will hold their new belief systems and integrate, and your body will process when it's ready to, when it feels safe to do so.
Mhm.
So I hope that answers your question.
Does. It's great. And trauma informed, because I always say trauma hides. We mask it, right? Um,
Hmm.
I know that there's a lot of people that have, I think one time I was doing some research on trauma and mental illness, and they said that there's 81 or 87% of people living with a mental illness have experienced one form of trauma, at least in their life. So I always chalk
Hmm.
that up to 100%, because probably the other 90 or the other 13% or whatever it is just hasn't come forward with it, right? So
Yeah.
I really believe that trauma is something that most of us have experienced, and trauma not in the sense of a catastrophic event, but sometimes it can be something that other people wouldn't even deem as traumatic, but to the person it's traumatic. So we have to respect each other's idea and ideals about what trauma is. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it's an important piece. And when you say that to allow that in, it's a process. So I would like to
Mm-hmm.
know if someone, once they get used to using those skills, are they able to do it in the comfort of, like, if they start to experience some emotional turmoil inside, are they able to bring that out and utilize it as a skill that they could use quite readily in different situations?
Yeah, I mean, I hope I'm answering your question correctly, but what I feel like with the breath work, it doesn't
Yeah,
have to be this like hour-long
right.
thing that you go to a class, or you like I do these virtual classes and stuff, or I do one-to-one sessions. Like people don't have to do that. Like literally, if you go to my Instagram page, I don't have a ton of them, but like I can teach you a 3-minute breath work
Nice.
thing, and that can just regulate your nervous system so that, for example, if you have a little tiff with someone in your household and it just doesn't feel good and you feel yourself reacting, feeling big emotions, like just a little bit of breath work. Like I have a kid as a parent, I'm constantly dealing with rides of frustration or emotion. Not every day is smooth as a parent. And so I go hide in the bathroom and I do 5 minutes of breath work and I reset. And I feel like this is something that anyone can do. Everyone breathes, right? So even if you're on a oxygen machine, you can breathe, in a way that feels safe and good for your body and regulate your nervous system.
Nice. Yeah. And that's good to know. I think once you get comfortable with the skill, then you can bring it into different situations. I always say it's good to practice and get really and master those skills in the comfort of your home, in a safe place. And then when you need them in an outside arena, depending where you
Mhm.
are, you can pull on those. So that's great. And I think that the breathing piece is becoming more and more popular, like the
Yeah.
breakthrough breathing, whereas at one time we always thought there was just one way to breathe. And then when we get
Right.
anxious, we tend to breathe much differently because of our anxiety and our sympathetic system kicking in, right? So it's good to be able
Mhm.
to learn those skills. Thank you. I do want to
Yeah.
ask you too, Heather, is what does it mean when you talk about, I know that you promote to look like sorry, what does it mean to and look like to live a life of authentic self expression, as you refer to it?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for asking. I love that question. So, this is an ever unfolding process. There's no getting there with this idea, because we are these, to me, I believe we are souls that are holding a body. And so we have this authentic self that is the soul, I think. And that a lot of our personalities and our identities, not that they're wrong, but sometimes we've chosen to be a certain way because of different traumas and wounding that has happened. And like, I just want to touch on what you were talking about earlier. Traumas don't have to be big traumas, they can be little traumas.
Mhm.
You could have had a parent that made you feel like you had to walk around on eggshells. And so maybe you masked a certain part of yourself, or maybe you were a really expressive young child and everyone said, can you just calm down, you're just too much, settle
Right.
down. And so you're masking parts of yourself that want to be fully expressed. And so when I think of authentic full expression, that is being the core of who you are. And a lot of times we can find that through inner child work, but to me, it's also about connecting to that soul self. Like when I think about who I was when I was born, who is she? Who is that little baby coming into the world? Who does she want to be? How does she want to be fully expressed? So it's really this beautiful, ever unfolding process of, taking off the layers that we've been putting on to protect ourselves from being seen, being validated, being who we really are. The world now more than ever, I feel like we're all kind of being watched a little bit with social media. And I think for some people, they show up in different ways. Some people show up with masks and some people don't, but this is a journey for you to find your truth. That's not up to me or anyone else to say what's true for you or not. And something that was true for you a couple years ago might not be true today, and you're just this ever unfolding, evolving human being. And yeah, and I think as a an artist too, I think I love the idea of when I think of authentic expression and the embodiment work too, it's really about like, how does your body move in space? How does that authentically feel? Like, do you feel safe when you like walk out of your house? Like, I'm looking at your earrings right now and I feel this like energetic thing around you that's like these earrings that you're wearing is an expression of who you are. And that lets your light shine. And then you attract and draw in like your soul people, your aligned people,
Yeah.
aligned situations. I don't know. It's just like a magnetic energy, really.
That's neat. I love the description of that, and being who you want to be. And sometimes we don't do that. And tell me what your thoughts are. But I think for some people, it's worried about being prejudged. It's something that maybe the people on the
Mm-hmm.
receiving end aren't comfortable with that and don't know how to respond, so therefore want to suppress it or not talk about it. So there's a variety of things that can happen, right, when we
Yeah.
interact with each other. But I think being true to yourself, I've always believed that. I've always said to myself that I have to be true to who I am, because if you start trying to be like someone else or act like other people, I always feel very uncomfortable in my own skin. You know that expression, you feel uncomfortable in your own skin
Mm-hmm.
because it's not who you are. It's like another way
Mm-hmm.
of maybe saying it is, if you put your shirt on backwards or your dress on backwards, that awkward feeling like
Yeah.
something isn't right. And I think that's the way
Yeah.
I feel when you describe that, like being your authentic self.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually something that if you are feeling exhausted or you're feeling like especially exhausted around certain people,
Mm,
then there might be something that's out of alignment for you. I think about an example of, when I first became a mother, I feel like Target is like still such a thing, but like it's like there's like a Target mom brand or something. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you know exactly what I mean,
yeah.
but oh yeah, I don't know if you guys have Target in Canada.
We
Do you
had it,
guys have
but
Target there?
we did, but it quickly vanished. It didn't do well
Okay.
up here in not in Manitoba
Oh.
anyways.
Oh my God. It's like a
I,
joke here where it's just like there's like a Target thing. There's a thing with Target in America. It's like Walmart or something. I don't know. But
yeah,
anyway,
probably is. Yeah.
yeah, so maybe you guys have something like that in Canada, but I noticed myself like with their marketing, they got me somehow for a while, and I would always be like, buy something and then take it home. And then it was exactly that feeling of like, I put my shirt on backwards. I would buy something from Target and be like, that doesn't, once I got into my space again. So it's this thing. So that's just one example, like an external example, but
Mhm.
that you're gonna feel something's not right. And like maybe you're hanging with a group of other people that all go to Target. Like again, this is just
Yeah.
my silly example.
No, it's a
But
great one.
there's nothing wrong if you like whatever store. I don't care if you like Target. I want you to be you. If
Yeah,
you love it, then you do
that's
it.
right.
But I started to realize, like, why am I doing that? And I think a lot of it was because of just being like where I was, being a mom, like that's where everybody goes or something.
Mm,
It's like I was definitely being influenced. And so recognize where maybe you're being influenced and feeling like, oh, I have to, subscribing to the quote unquote status quo
right.
um,
Yes, yes.
can make sense for survival, right? If we fit into the tribe, then we are safe. We're not going to be outcasted. There's a very reptilian sort of
Yeah.
aspect to that where it's like safe to do the same as others. So
Yeah.
explore that, open your mind up to that. Who are you really? And show up as that, because you're going to attract the right people.
Yeah.
No one's going to judge you that really loves you.
That's right. And it's those Maslow's basic laws, right? You want to be accepted, you want to
Yeah.
be loved and needed. And I like the Target example because there, you do things and you go through the motions sometimes without even really thinking. So I think just hitting pause and saying, okay, what is it about this that doesn't really feel right? And being able
Mhm.
to just self-reflect. And I love the expression. I remember listening to Lisa Nichols, who's one of my favorite mentors on
Mhm.
YouTube. And she said, no is a complete sentence. And I think that
Mhm.
was so powerful because we want to please people. Most of us are people pleasers. And if we can't do something, we say no. And then we continue to explain why and give rationale as to why we can't do it instead of just saying no or no, thank you,
Yeah.
or I don't have time, or I love the opportunity, but I have to decline it. Just being able
Yeah.
to do what feels right from inside. And I think a lot of times it goes on that gut intuition. And we don't
Yeah.
always stop long enough to feel it and to assess it and to then just be able to make that decision that's best for us. So I did want to
Yeah.
ask you a couple
Mhm.
questions about when you're doing your skills. There's
Mhm.
safety in the body, there's practicing visceral intelligence and nervous system regulation tools. Can you touch a little bit on each one? Is there a scenario that you've
Yeah.
helped yourself or someone else, one of your clients, work through those three different key pieces?
Yeah, definitely. So, I think for me, there was so much wounding around in abandonment, like my attachment style. So a lot of the stuff that would show up for me was kind of projected towards my partner. Um, and so I would get really anxious when he would go out in the evenings and, kind of be like, when are you going to be back? And what is it? Like all these questions and feeling so much anxiety in my body and just a lot of trust stuff. And so I started working through it and being like, what is that? And I realized that there was some wounding around just having a father, my biological father, that is, was an addict, and he would like leave the house in the middle of the night a lot. And so um, I didn't really think about any of this until I was like, why is it specifically at nighttime? It would just be
Yeah.
like this thing where if he like went to meet it with friends or had something, a business meeting, it would just be like, and
Mhm.
so yeah, I was like, okay, there's something there. And so um I could feel that in my body. Like I said, when you have something that bothers you, you can just feel the tension and everything. So I really started focusing on accessing safety in the body. And so the first time I did a meditation around this, I could only feel safe in my toes. And so we have to find the place in our body where we feel safe. Some people, it might be in your heart. Some people, it might be on the tips of your fingers. Like I said, for me, I could only feel safe in my toes. That was it. Everywhere else felt like chaos. It felt scary and like this static energy that was just frantic. And so I started to just be with my body and allow myself to slowly expand into that discomfort that I was feeling. So I would start at my toes and I would slowly come up. And this is the visceral intelligence part. So we began doing these body scans, and I don't have to consciously practice visceral intelligence. Well, I don't have to consciously do body scans anymore because I'm just, I still do them, but I guess I'm just saying that like once you do
You're
this
dialed
over and
in.
over,
Yeah.
you just are there. You're with your whole body at one time when you practice visceral intelligence, even for 2 minutes a day. Just do these body scans all day, every day. Every time you think of it, just do a body scan. Feel what you are feeling. There are these subtle energetic and emotional tensions in the body where you're holding or wounding. And so when you practice and become aware of this, you can actually sit with it. And if you can just sit with it for like 90 seconds, you're going to notice it calms down. This is like the small child that hasn't gotten any attention all day, who is just driving you nuts. And you're like, if you would just sit with that kid and play with that kid for 20 minutes, they would chill out because you would fill their cup. This is the exact same thing with the emotions that you're experiencing, but feels like it's all in your head, but it's also happening in your body. And you may have become somebody who is disassociated from their body because of how uncomfortable it is to experience emotional turbulence.
Mhm.
But just by doing these body scans. Allow yourself, in psychology, it's called the window of tolerance. I'm sure you might have heard that before, but it's expanding your capacity to hold space for yourself, your emotions, and being there and allowing them to, you know, emotions don't last very long. They feel, I
Yeah.
mean, 20 minutes of an emotional disturbance feels like a long time.
Mhm.
But if you can just ride the wave,
Mhm.
and that's where the nervous system regulation comes in, is being able to use that breath work, using movement, using shaking, dancing. I'm like, I have to move my body. All
Yeah.
these things. There's lots of different nervous system regulation tools, sound, screaming. I just did some screaming in a pillow this morning, because I have a lot of tension in my throat sometimes. I tend to feel scared to say what I want to authentically say because I was told to be quiet a lot as a kid.
Mhm.
So I have to hold space for that part of me, that visceral experience. And so that's really it, is safety in the body, visceral intelligence, and then regulate your nervous system. And then you can really allow yourself to move through these experiences emotionally and energetically.
So amazing. Thank you. That's a lot of good information. So,
Mhm.
now you do have your own podcast. Is there anything
Yeah.
you're working on currently that the audience should know? Or that's one question. Secondly, how
Yeah.
can someone get a hold of you to understand and to learn more and possibly to work with you one on one?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so right now the best way to start for free is my free monthly breathwork class. And I actually, the website, that the link for that is like a weird website URL. So how about we just put the link in the show notes if that's okay?
Okay, sure. In the
Um
chat, is that what?
let's see.
Or can I? Or
Maybe I can email it to you, and
okay,
then is
sure.
that okay?
Yeah,
Or
that's fine.
okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Just because it's like a landing page or something. So
Okay,
I'll
sure.
yeah, so the breathwork class will allow you to come and experience an hour long transformative experience. The type of breathwork that I'm trained in is very similar to holotropic, which puts you into altered states. Now, this isn't something where you're going to be like on plant medicine or something intense, but it can feel that way for people when they first start. So I like to take it super easy, give people options to go slow and just move through the initial experience of trying breath work for the first time. Or maybe you have done breath work and you just want to try this style. So this can show you what that experience is like. And then the other thing that I'm working on right now is, I actually, as we record this, I'm launching my Embodied Forces program. And I'm going to be, it's a 4 month long program. So it's 16 weeks of bi-weekly group coaching.
Nice.
And it comes with like 3 breathwork classes in the 4 month period. And yeah, there's a couple of other bonuses that come with it. And that will be opening up again in November-ish, I believe. So people can get on the wait list with that for that if they're interested. One-to-one coaching is always available at this point. Right now, since I'm launching Embodied Forces, I don't know how many people will be coming in this week for that, so it might fill up. But people can always reach out to me via email. It's Heather at fortheloveofselfcoaching.com. It's a little bit long, but yeah, it's that's a good place to really actually connect with me if you want to get some deeper questions. And then of course I'm on Instagram at fortheloveof.self, and you can always send me a DM there. My website is under it's being worked on, but you can still go to it. It's fortheloveofselfcoaching.com.
Nice.
And I think that's everything. And I'm just working on more stuff for people, trying to create some more samplings of the embodiment work side of things. Right now I just have
Mhm.
that breath work, but I want to create like a embodiment experience that people can come sample and try out. So keep an eye out for that.
Yes, and it sounds like a book in the making. Have you considered writing a book on all of these? Because just the step by step and different examples. Any
I have
thoughts?
chills that you asked me that, because my goal this summer, because I start grad school this fall, and I was like, I want to start writing my book this summer. And so I'm going to spend an hour today just starting it, because yeah, I pretty much have like 7 chapters for like each kind of step that would be involved, and like my, really just sharing my information of the work that I do, but weaving in my own personal experience. My life used to be really, really dark. So I just want to encourage the listener out there, if you're in a really dark space, consider like getting the help that you need, whether it's me or a real actual therapist, or, just find the support in the community, because one of the biggest things that they find in psychological research is that social support is one of the biggest benefits to moving through mental illness. It's so important that you get the support and surround yourself with family and friends that are going to keep an eye on you and help you. They're not going to be able to do your push-ups for you. You
No.
got to do the hard work yourself. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That's so key. And sometimes our supports come in different forms, right? Sometimes
absolutely.
people think family, but sometimes family isn't even on the radar.
Mm-mm.
Maybe their
No.
situation, maybe a lot of their trauma and their upbringing has caused them to separate from their family, because that's the
Yeah.
only thing that is keeping them safe or keeping them, mentally well. Not that that's the case in every situation, but sometimes our supports come from people like yourself, someone who reaches out to you and you're their support to help guide them through step by step how to do all of these techniques and the benefits of it. And sometimes it comes in ways of working with support groups or whatever it might be for that person. But again, making it
Mm-hmm.
your own, right? What feels good inside, because it is a scary place. And having gone through depression and anxiety myself, being able to open up and share that story, it's not something, a lot of those thoughts in your head are very secretive and you don't want to share it with the
Mm-hmm.
outside world. So building that
Yeah.
therapeutic relationship, building that trust is really can go a long ways in helping someone be able to overcome that. So thank you.
Yeah.
I want to
Well,
ask you
thank
one
you.
last question.
Yep.
You are in California, so you are driving down the freeway and you see a billboard and it's your billboard. What is the billboard going to read out to the people driving by?
Well, as I spoke about earlier, it would have to say, "You are safe. You are
Hmm.
safe in your body," or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
great. Thank you. So I look
Mm.
forward to learning more. I'm definitely going to go on your website and research that a little bit more. And I'm sure that there's people listening out there that you've inspired and you've given them some hope, because
Mm.
we all need hope in the world today, especially today in this day and age, right? So thank you, Heather.
Definitely.
And we will have
Thank
this
you.
recording up and out in the hopefully the next 24 to 48 hours. So keep listening to Living in My Shadow podcast. And you can reach us if you have any further questions for Heather, visit her website, her email, reach out to her. If you have any questions for us at the OCD Coach, you can reach us at www.theocdcoach.com. Take good care and have a great week ahead. Bye for now.
Bye.